Welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing you a story, a tale of Jane Miller, a bit of folklore, a thrilling mystery, and so much more. Stick around for today's story, folks. Back in the days of the American frontier, think early 1800s, there was a place called Redstone Ridge, a small mountain town tucked away in Laramie County, Wyoming. To the southwest of Redstone Ridge lay a little valley village, a peaceful spot with wide open views. Life here was simple, rooted in good old-fashioned traditions. The folks were hard-working and kind-hearted, the type who'd give you the shirt off their back if you needed it. Every year, as the leaves turned gold and the air got crisp, the town threw its annual Harvest Lantern Festival. Streets buzzed with excitement around this time. Lanterns glowed, kids ran wild, and the whole place came alive. Just outside the village, not too far off, stood the Old Earth Shrine, a rickety wooden chapel that folks treated like sacred ground. During the festival, they'd hold a fair there, a big shindig with more than just trinkets and knickknacks. You'd find stalls packed with everyday goods, tools, quilts, jars of preserves, and the best part? Mouth-watering snacks, like candied apples and roasted chestnuts, that'd make your stomach growl just walking by. Villagers flocked to the shrine, praying for good weather in the year ahead and harmony in their homes. Among them was a man named Jed Carson, a local guy who hauled supplies for the vendors near the Earth Shrine. But Jed had a bigger reason for showing up. He was there to pray for his daughter, a girl he hoped would find someone to lean on for the rest of her days. Jed was the village hunter. Besides raising ducks and fishing the creek out back, he'd taken in a daughter, Lily. Thing is, folks around town weren't kind about her. They called her slow, simple-minded. Some even laughed and said she'd never catch a suitor's eye. At 16, she still hadn't had a single proposal. Every Harvest Lantern Festival, the fair drew a crowd, not just the old-timers and kids from the village, but folks from nearby towns too, all piling in for the fun. The streets turned into a sea of people, and Jed, holding Lily's hand tight, led her toward the wishing well by the shrine. He was nervous, though. Once he went inside to light a candle and say his prayers, he'd have to leave Lily on her own for a bit. So he turned to her and said, "Lily, you stay right here, okay? Don't wander off. I'll be back to get you after I light the candle." "Got it." "Pa, I want a little clay doll," Lily piped up. "And some candy." At 16, she still talked like a kid half her age, her voice bright and eager. To keep her calm, Jed sighed and bought her a stick of rock candy. He sat her down on a stone bench by the shrine gate. Lily, bless her heart, clutched that candy with a goofy grin, her innocent face lighting up like it was Christmas morning. She nodded at Jed, half understanding, half not, and giggled ear to ear. For Jed Carson and his sweet, simple daughter, maybe it was fate at work, weaving a thread of destiny through their lives. Now, here's the thing about Lily, she wasn't Jed Carson's flesh and blood. Everyone in that little valley village knew it, even if they didn't talk about it much. There was this local dish folks raved about, a hearty stew they called the Three Treasures of Redstone. Picture this: duck heads, rabbit heads, and a side of crispy duck feet, all cooked up into a delicacy that'd warm your bones on a chilly Wyoming night. The ducks and fish came easy, Jed raised them right in his backyard. But those rabbit heads? That meant trekking up Redstone Ridge to hunt wild hares. Jed often teamed up with his sworn brother, Tom Driscoll, for those hunts. The two of them would tromp up the mountain, rifles slung over their shoulders, chasing rabbits through the brush. And Lily? She was Tom's daughter. Tom's wife had passed away giving birth to her, leaving him to raise the little girl alone. Every hunting trip, he'd tote Lily along, too stubborn to leave her behind with anyone else. One day, things went sideways. Jed and Tom didn't head out together like usual. Tom took Lily up the ridge ahead of time, planning to meet Jed at the top. But when Jed finally huffed his way to their spot, Tom was already gone, breathless, sprawled out cold on the ground. Beside him sat 5-year-old Lily, tears streaming down her face as pear blossoms fluttered in the wind, mixing with the drizzle. She kept sobbing, "Pa, I want my pa. Wah." Jed's heart broke clean in two. On one side, he was grieving his best friend, hauling Tom's body down the mountain. On the other, he had this crying kid clinging to him, her little hands tugging at his coat. Burying his sworn brother was no easy task, and figuring out what to do with Lily? That was a whole other mess. Jed was a bachelor, never hitched, and now he had this wailing towhead to look after. How was he supposed to find a wife dragging around a kid like that? He tracked down Tom's kin in the next town over, figuring they'd take her. Word came back through a neighbor that Tom's folks were swamped with farm work and couldn't fetch Lily for a few days. No choice, Jed took her in temporary-like, letting her bunk at his place. One morning, he left Lily alone at the cabin and headed up the ridge to hunt. Big mistake. He misstepped, slipped, and tumbled into a rocky crevice below a cliff. This is it, Jed thought, lying there bruised and starving. Ain't no one gonna find me here. Guess I'm following Tom to the grave. 2 days dragged by. Luckily, some dew trickled down the rocks, keeping him alive, but hunger gnawed at him fierce. He worried more about Lily though. She's all alone back home. What if she starves? Just when he'd given up hope, a faint voice cut through the haze. Uncle Jed. Where are you? It's me, Lily. At first, he figured it was a dying man's dream. She was only 5. How could she brave the wilds of Redstone Ridge by herself? But the voice got closer, clearer. Uncle Jed. Uncle Jed. Desperate, he croaked out, down here. Is that you, Lily? Uncle Jed. It's me, she hollered back. You didn't come home for days, and I got scared all by myself. I remembered the trails Pa took me on, so I came looking for you. Hold on, I'm gonna run back and get the neighbors to haul you out. Before Jed could say a word, her little footsteps pattered off. Sure enough, that tiny girl saved his life. A few days later, Tom's kin showed up to take Lily away. But she wouldn't go, clinging to Jed's leg, bawling her eyes out, saying she was terrified of leaving. Right then, the landlord banged on Jed's door, demanding rent. Jed hadn't been able to sell his ducks or fish lately, laid up as he was, so he couldn't pay. The landlord told him to pack up and git. Furious, Jed scooped Lily up in his arms and barked at the landlord, "Get lost." Then he wheeled around to Tom's relatives. You ain't taking her neither. I know you're just after Tom's land and goods. Lily'd suffer with you lot. She's my brother's girl, and I'll raise her right. Tom's homestead belongs to her someday, you clear out too. From that day on, Jed moved into Tom's old place and became Lily's pa for real. 3 years rolled by, and Lily turned 8. On her 8th birthday, she piped up with a big grin, "Pa, I want to go up the ridge and catch a rabbit to celebrate." Jed figured she was old enough to tag along, so he let her try. But noon came and went, and Lily didn't come home. Worried sick, Jed grabbed his hat and rifle and hiked up Redstone Ridge to find her. He searched high and low until he stumbled across her near a big, lonely boulder. There she was, crumpled on the ground, covered in scratches and bruises. In her little hand, she clutched a dead rabbit, snagged in a trap she'd set herself. Jed rushed her to the town doc, who patched her up but delivered grim news. She took a bad hit to the head, Jed. We saved her life, but there's bruising in her brain. She might come out of it slow, simple-like. Could heal up over time, or it might stick with her forever. It's in God's hands now. The words hit Jed like a mule kick. He'd taken Lily in hoping to raise her right, maybe see her grow up sharp and strong to care for him in his old age. Now that dream was busted. Still, Jed's heart was too big to turn her out. He kept on raising his sweet, simple girl, even if she'd never be quite the same. Every Harvest Lantern Festival, Jed hauled Lily to the Earth Shrine, lighting candles and praying she'd get better, maybe even find a good man someday. Fast forward to when Lily hit 16. Usually, Jed left her with their neighbor, Mrs. Lizzie Tate, during the fair. But this year, Lizzie's daughter had hauled her off to spend Thanksgiving in the next town over. With no one to watch Lily, Jed had to bring her along to the crowded shrine fair. He settled her on that stone bench again, handed her some rock candy, and said, "Stay put, Lily. I'll be back soon." Then he waded into the throng to light his candle. The place was packed, folks elbowing past, voices hollering over the fiddle music. When Jed finally pushed his way back to the bench, Lily was gone. Panic set in. He figured she'd trailed after him and got lost in the crowd. He shouted her name, shoving through the sea of people, but half a day passed with no sign of her. As night fell, the fair started winding down. Vendors packed up their stalls, and the lanterns dimmed, but Lily was still missing. It wasn't until dawn broke that Jed found her, in a narrow alley off the main street, passed out cold. Her dress was torn, blood streaked her legs, and she gripped that stick of candy like it was all she had left. Jed scoot twisted. He knew what had happened. Quick as he could, he yanked off his coat, wrapped her up, and carried her home. Lily stirred, mumbling through tears, "Don't come near me. I want my pa. This is mine. Pa got it for me. Get away, you rotten varmints. You animals wouldn't even spare a simple girl." Jed broke down, sobbing, "Lord Almighty, let him rot for this." Getting Lily home wasn't easy. She was scared stiff, refusing to step outside ever again. She'd hide under her blankets, muttering about folks out to get her, or bolt up swinging a broomstick at imaginary bad guys. Taking care of her wore Jed down. 3 months on, he dropped weight, his eyes sunk deep, and he moved slow like a man twice his age. Body and soul, he was plumb tuckered out. Then one day, Lily said she couldn't eat. Jed cooked up her favorite, pan-fried fish with a tangy sauce, but the smell hit her, and she puked all over the floor. He called the doc again, who checked her over and said, "Jed, she's pregnant. Take good care of her, keep her warm and rested." Jed's heart sank. Tears streamed down his face as he choked out, "Tom, I'm sorry, brother. I took your girl in, and I couldn't protect her. She saved my life once, and I let her down like this." 7 months later, Lily gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. The village buzzed like a kicked beehive. A simple girl, unwed, having kids? Tongues wagged, but Jed didn't care. Lily didn't either. She was too lost in her own world to notice the gossip. After the twins came, something shifted in Lily. She was still simple, sure, but her mood lifted. She learned to nurse the babies, sew little clothes for them, even help with chores. She'd step outside to water the patchy garden out front, humming to herself. Jed didn't know who the father was, but seeing Lily find some peace eased his mind. He doted on those twins, too, loved them like his own. 3 generations under one roof, they carved out a quiet, happy spell for a while. Funny thing though, Lily wasn't Jed's kin, but those twins started looking more like him every day. Same eyes, same jawline, like they'd been carved from the same mold. Village busybodies noticed, too, and started whispering. Jed took Lily in as his daughter, sure, but look at them kids. Her real pa's dead, and Jed's a lone man, maybe he took her for himself. Took Tom's house, took his girl, can't trust a fella like that. The rumors grew legs, and one day, an old-timer cornered Jed. "Tell it straight, Jed. Them twins, are they yours? Your grandkids?" Jed's face darkened. He stormed over to Lizzie Tate's place, fuming, "You've known me forever, Lizzie. What kind of man am I? Right now, bandits are raiding half the county, and folks are spinning tales about me?" Lily's husband, yes, she had one, joined up to fight him off. "I was at the militia camp when they wed. If she was any other girl, suitors would have busted down my door. But that boy didn't care she was slow, he married her and shipped out to defend us all." Jed spun that yarn to shut him up, and it worked. The twins grew up bright. Tom Jr. loved books, and little Sue was sharp as a tack, always calling Jed Grandpa, and warming his old heart. Jed, a simple farmer with no kin of his own, let the kids take their mama's name, Tom Miller and Sue Miller. If anyone asked, he'd say their pa died fighting bandits, and that was that. There's an old saying out west, tomorrow and trouble, you never know which'll hit you first. That sure rang true for Jed Carson. One crisp fall day, he was out hunting rabbits on Redstone Ridge, same as always. But luck turned sour, he slipped and plunged off a cliff, dead on the spot. When Tom Jr. went looking for him, all he found was a body cold and still. After Jed passed, the weight of the world fell on the twins, Tom Jr. and Sue. Sue, practical as ever, sat her brother down and said, "Tommy, you keep your nose in them books. I'll handle the chores. Study hard, make something of yourself, and don't forget your little sister when you're a big shot someday. We'll get Mama some peace yet." So that's how it went. Sue took on the homestead, and Tom Jr. hit the books. Hard work paid off, and a few years later, Tom aced the state exams, earning a ticket to head east to Washington, D.C., for a shot at a government post. Before he left, Sue dug out every last penny they'd stashed away, savings Jed had scraped together selling ducks and fish. "Tommy," she said, handing him a pouch, "this is what Grandpa left us. Me and Mama will keep a third to get by. You take the rest for the road." Tom knelt before Lily, tears in his eyes. "Mama, Sue, you've carried me all these years. Sue, look after her while I'm gone. I'll make you proud." Next morning, as the sun peeked over the ridge, Tom Jr. set out. Lily, simple as she was, knew her boy was leaving. She trailed him quietly to the edge of town, watching till he vanished from sight. Shuffling back home alone, she shook her head, muttering, "Pa, my Tommy and Sue, happy, ha ha ha." Lost in her thoughts, she didn't see the horse cart barreling down the road. The driver yanked the reins just in time, hollering, "Whoa!" A head poked out from the cart, a man with a calm voice asking, "What's going on?" The driver grumbled, "Nearly ran over some crazy lady, boss." "She all right?" the man called back, steady as a rock. The driver sneered, "She's fine, just loony." The man stepped down, and the driver's jaw dropped. "Well, she's a looker for a nutcase." The man froze, eyebrows shooting up. "That's her," he muttered. It was Elias Granger, a wealthy trader from back east. As he stared at Lily, she stared right back, clutching her shawl. "No. This is mine. Pa got it for me. Stay away, you ugly egg." She lunged at him, wild-eyed, but Sue dashed up just in time, grabbing her. "Mama, it's me, Sue. Don't be scared." Sue hugged Lily tight, then turned to Elias, eyes narrowed. "You ain't from around here, are you? Can't you see my mama's not right in the head? What's a fancy cart like yours doing, nearly running folks down without so much as a sorry?" The driver bristled, ready to snap back, but Elias raised a hand. "Hold up. What did you call her just now?" "She's my mama," Sue shot back. "What's it to you?" She tugged Lily toward home. The driver started after them, but Elias stopped him cold. "Follow 'em quiet-like. Find out where they live. Don't let 'em spot you." The driver smirked, cracking the whip. "Boss, they're just a couple of helpless gals. Want me to round up some boys and teach 'em a lesson?" "What are you yammering about?" Elias snapped. "Didn't you hear her call that woman mama? Look at that girl's face, between her brows, don't she look like me?" He pulled the cart curtain aside, squinting into the distance. The driver chuckled. "She's a beauty, all right, but crazy as a coot. Ain't exactly the type to lift a man up in the world." "You saying she's your daughter, boss? Got some lady on the side we don't know about?" Elias didn't answer. The driver, new to the Granger outfit, only 10 years in, couldn't have known. Sue was 16, and 16 years back, Elias wasn't the big shot he was now. He'd been a quiet kid, barely out of his pa's shadow. No way he'd spill a secret that deep, not unless fate tripped him right into it. And today it had. 16 years ago, Elias was still Eli Granger, a trader's son itching to break free. His folks pushed him into marrying a girl he didn't love, arranged cold, not a spark between them. That fall, during the Harvest Lantern Festival, he ditched home and rode out to the fair alone. Before he left, his wife shoved a bowl of tonic soup at him, some herbal brew she swore would keep him spry. He didn't want to argue, so he gulped it down and bolted. Halfway through the fair, dazzled by lanterns and riddle games, he spotted Lily, sweet, simple Lily, holding a stick of candy, grinning like the sun itself. Her smile lifted his spirits, and he couldn't look away. But then he saw it, 3 roughnecks circling her, dragging her toward an alley with bad intent. Eli followed. "What are you boys up to?" he barked. "Mind your own, fancy pants," one sneered. "Beat it." "That's my sister," Eli lied, stepping closer. "Let her go, or I'll raise hell." The thugs sized him up, nice coat, boots too clean for trouble, and figured he wasn't worth the hassle. They cursed and scrammed, leaving Lily trembling. "You okay, miss? Where's your folks?" "I'll get you home," Eli said, reaching out. But before he could, his head spun like a top, and a fire lit in his gut. That damn soup, he realized too late it had been spiked. Next thing he knew, he woke up in that alley, clothes askew, with Lily beside him, bloody and dazed. Horror hit him. "What've I done?" he whispered, bolting back home, guilt choking him silent for years. Years piled up, and Eli Granger turned into Elias Granger, a big-name trader with a fortune to his name. He took more wives under his folks' prodding, but none bore him kids. Sometimes, late at night, he'd wonder if it was payback for that awful night 16 years back, God's way of balancing the scales. Not long ago, he'd visited a preacher out east, spilling his guilt. The old man told him, "Do good, son. Stack up enough kindness, and the Lord'll give you an answer. So Elias started handing out coats to orphans, feeding the hungry, anything to tip the scales. That day, on his way back from a charity run, his cart nearly flattened Lily, and the past roared back like a stampede. He wanted to ask her everything, but Sue cut him off, hauling her mama away. Elias sent a hired man to sniff around town. Word came back, the crazy lady was Lily Miller, an orphan raised by a hunter named Jed Carson, now dead. 16 years ago, she'd had twins, father unknown. Folks said he'd joined the militia to fight bandits and never came back. 16 years twins, Elias muttered, piecing it together. I've got a son, too. The Lord ain't done with me yet. Convinced they were his, he lit up with a grin he hadn't worn in years, a weight lifting off his chest after a decade and a half. His man added, the boy's gone east to Washington for the exams. That day you saw him, she was seeing him off at the town line. Elias's heart soared. He loaded up gifts, blankets, preserves, a sack of coins, and rode to Lily's place, calling it an apology for the cart scare. But Sue wasn't having it. She shoved his offerings back, glaring like he was the devil himself. Seeing how deep her grudge ran, Elias's hope chilled. He wanted to bring Lily and Sue home, make things right, but they wouldn't give him the time of day. So he switched tactics, quiet help. Sue sewed quilts to sell, Elias sent his maids to buy 'em at top dollar. The chickens and crops Lily and Sue raised. His men snapped up the surplus with fat stacks of cash, no questions asked. Bit by bit, life got easier for Sue and Lily. Then word trickled back from D.C., Tom Jr. had passed his exams with flying colors, a rising star in the capital. Sue ran to tell Lily, and her mama perked up, laughing till she fainted from joy. When she came to, sprawled on her bed, something clicked. Her mind cleared, sharp as a tack, no more fog. Sue, she whispered, voice steady, I'm sorry. I've let you and Tommy down. I never even knew who your pa was, some beast who hurt me. It's all my fault. Sue knelt beside her, confused. Mama, what are you saying? Grandpa told us pa died fighting bandits, a hero. You're mixed up, that's all. No, Lily insisted, eyes fierce. He wasn't a hero. He forced me, left me broken, and you too came from it. I failed you, don't even know his face. She laughed, then sobbed, clutching at the air. One last gasp, and her eyes shut for good. The day they buried Lily, Elias showed up. He told Sue the whole ugly truth, how he'd been drugged, lost control, and run off in shame. He begged her to come east, live as his daughter in his big house. Sue stared him down, stone cold. I'd rather starve than take a dime from you, she said, turning away. After the funeral, Sue married Will Hayes, the town doc who'd tended Lily for years. They'd grown close over late-night house calls, and love snuck up on him. Sue wasn't cut out for hunting rabbits. She wanted to run Will's apothecary, helping folks heal. For a while, they had it good, him out front doctoring, her keeping the shop humming. But good folks don't always last long. One spring, a fever swept the valley, and the apothecary ran dry. Sue volunteered to hike Redstone Ridge for herbs, couldn't stand seeing neighbors suffer. Up she went, but she slipped on loose shale and rolled down the mountain, dead before anyone found her. In her hand, she clutched a fistful of fresh-picked roots. Elias, gray and stooped, mourned her hard. He'd lost his daughter, twice over if you counted Lily, and he wasn't about to lose his son, too kin or not. He penned a letter to Tom Jr., breaking the news of Sue and Lily's deaths, and sent it off unsigned. When Tom got that letter in D.C., tears blurred the ink. He didn't know who wrote it, but it broke him. He quit his post and headed home. Midday, he stopped by Will's apothecary, finding his brother-in-law bent over a mortar. Will, it's me, Tom, Sue's brother, he said, clapping him on the shoulder. We're family now, no need for fuss. Sit, have some coffee. Will poured a cup, and they talked, about Lily's grave, Sue's too. Will couldn't leave the shop, so Tom grabbed a bottle of whiskey and went alone to pay respects. By dusk, he hadn't returned, so Will headed to the back barn to butcher a steer for supper. Knife in hand, he raised it over the old cow's neck, then froze. The beast spoke, voice low and rumbling. That blade's too dull to kill me, boss. Wait till tonight, I'll fetch a sharp one. It'll save a life. Will nearly dropped the knife, staggering back as the cow dodged the blow. Clang, it hit the dirt. Tom walked in just then, blinking. "What's all the racket?" "Just sharpening this blade," Will lied, heart pounding. The cow locked eyes with him and rasped, "Keep your kin here tonight. Tell him not to lock the door, or he's dead. Mark my words." Will Hayes didn't say a word about the talking cow, figured it was too wild to spill. Instead, he rustled up a few extra dishes, cornbread, beans, and a slab of smoked pork, and called Tom Jr. over after supper. "Hey Tommy, crash here tonight, huh? We'll sort things out come morning." Tom waved him off, sipping his coffee. "Nah, folks'll talk. I'm a government man now, even if I'm back home. Can't take a lick from the townsfolk, gotta keep my nose clean. Word gets around, it's trouble." Will scratched his head, half smiling. "Two grown fellas worried about gossip? You're a straight shooter, Tom, I've heard the tales. Folks say you're an honest official, looking out for the little guy. What's a night under my roof gonna hurt? Besides, it's a haul to the graves and back. I'd sleep easier knowing you're here." Tom grinned, softening. "All right, you win. Heart's gotta be pure, rumors be damned. I'll stick around 3 years anyhow, honoring Mama and Sue. Might even help you with the shop if you'll have me." Will nodded, setting up a spare cot. Before turning in, he remembered the cow's warning and added, "Leave the door unlatched tonight. It's warm, lets the breeze through." Tom hit the hay, mind spinning. "Mama and Sue busted their backs for me, and I ain't given 'em a good life yet. They're gone now, but I'm here. Maybe I'll pitch in with Will, keep the apothecary going." Drifting off, he barely heard the creak of the floorboards. Then it came, a giant rabbit, big as a hound, hopped onto his bed. Its jaws gaped, bloody and wide, ready to suck the life out of him. A bellow roared from the barn. The old cow charged in, busting the unlatched door wide, and stomped the rabbit flat under its hooves. Tom jolted awake, heart hammering. If that cow hadn't barged in, he'd be rabbit chow. The critter squirmed free, bolting for the window, but the cow reared up, morphing into a grizzled man with a weathered face. He yanked a gleaming axe from his belt, big as a butcher's blade, and squared off with the rabbit. The beast shimmered, turning into a striking woman with wild eyes. "You're the star of Taurus, ain't ya?" she hissed. "Stay out of my business." The cowman growled, "You've been picking off folks left and right. I'm one of the 28 stars, my job's to set things right. You're done, varmint." "Done," she spat. "They killed my kin, over and over, for their suppers. Tom Driscoll and Jed Carson butchered my folks, my blood. Who's answering for that? I want him to feel loss like I did." Tom's ears perked up. So that's it, Tom Driscoll, his granddaddy, and Jed Carson had hunted rabbits up on Redstone Ridge, wiping out this spirit's family. She'd come for revenge. "You already scrambled Lily's head," the cowman boomed, "and killed her girl, Sue. Ain't that enough? Leave the innocent be." The rabbit woman lunged at Tom, snarling, "I'll take you too." But the cowman stomped forward, pinning her with a hoof and raising his axe. "No more," he roared, swinging down. She vanished in a puff of smoke, gone like a bad dream. Tom scrambled to his knees, bowing low. "Thank you, sir, spirit whatever you are, for saving me." The cowman waved him up. "Get up, son. You serve the people, ease their burdens, and don't take a dime you ain't earned. Your own goodness saved you, not me." "Sir," Tom ventured, "I've got a question, about where I came from." The cowman nodded, settling in. "Fair enough. Here's the truth, plain and simple." He laid it out, how Elias Granger, drugged out of his mind, hurt Lily 16 years back. How the rabbit spirit spiked that tonic soup, twisting a decent man into a monster. Your mama's folks, Tom and Jed, killed too many rabbits, stirred up this grudge. Elias did wrong, but his kin stacked up good deeds generations back, and he's been atoning ever since. That's why the Lord sent me to end this mess. Your own honor sealed the deal. With that, the cowman faded into the night. 3 years flew by, Tom's mourning period wrapped up, and a letter from D.C. called him north to tame some wild territory. Before heading out, he stopped by Elias's place, not stepping inside, just standing at the gate. He knocked his head 3 times on the post. "Pa, I'm off. Don't matter what they call us, Only matters I've got the country and its people in my heart." Then he turned and left. Elias, still kicking then, heard that faint paw and smiled, eyes clear at last. "Keep doing good, son," he whispered from afar. "Pile up the kindness, I'll rest easy." Tom Driscoll and Jed Carson paid for overhunting with their lives and their family's pain. Elias stumbled, but his ancestors' virtue and his own penance spared him ruin. Tom Jr., a straight arrow serving the nation, saved himself with his own grit. Ain't no love or hate in this world without a root. Every fruit's grown from a seed you sow. Folks, respect life, respect the land. Cut down on killing, stack up good deeds, every critter's got its worth. That's the first tale done. Next up, a yarn called The Fat Hog's Dream. Stay tuned. Alright folks, welcome back. Time for a fresh yarn, a slice of frontier folklore called The Fat Hog's Dream. Let's dive in. Way back when, in a little hollow nestled under Shadow Peak, Montana, lived a young couple, Jim Tucker and his wife, Ellie Mae. They'd tied the knot not long ago, and things were sweet between them, like honey on fresh biscuits. Before you knew it, Ellie Mae was expecting, and the whole Tucker clan was buzzing with excitement. Jim's folks, Ma and Pa Tucker, were old hands at raising hogs. They kept a few sows out back, selling piglets to neighbors who swore they were the plumpest in the county. With a grandkid on the way, Ma Tucker clapped her hands and declared, "Our best sow just dropped a litter, over a dozen little squealers. We'll keep 2 of the fattest for ourselves. Come the baby's born, we'll have a proper feast to celebrate." Everyone around the table nodded, grinning ear to ear. The whole family gathered that night, swapping tales about the little one yet to come. That unborn kid brought a spark of joy they hadn't felt in years. Next morning, Ma Tucker waded into the pig pen and picked out 2 prime piglets. One stood out, a snow-white runt with a funny streak. Most times, it'd just snuffle around like any other hog, but whenever Ellie Mae came by with a slop bucket, that piglet perked right up. It'd dance on its hooves, eyes glued to her belly, like it knew something was cooking in there. Ellie Mae thought it was odd but shrugged it off, didn't dwell on it much. The family was too busy counting down to the big day. Ellie Mae's time drew near, right around the holidays. Thanksgiving was knocking, and in these parts, folks smoked meat to ring in the season. After some chin-wagging, the Tuckers decided to slaughter the fattest of their white hogs. It wasn't anything special, just tradition, same as every year, same as every family in the hollow. But that night, something queer happened. Every Tucker under that roof had the same strange dream. In it, the big white hog stood in the pen, tears rolling down its snout, and spoke clear as day. "Y'all worked hard raising me, and now you're ready to reap the reward, that's fair as rain. But I've got one wish left. Give me 5 more days, let me see it through, and I'll go to the knife with no regrets." The hog bawled like a baby, collapsing in the mud, like it was carrying a world of hurt with nowhere to put it. Come breakfast, Jim cracked a grin and told the tale over coffee. "Funniest dream I ever had, that fat hog begging for time." Ma Tucker's fork froze mid-air. "You too, huh?" Pa Tucker's jaw dropped, and Ellie Mae piped up, "I saw it clear as I see you now." Every last one of them had dreamed the same dang thing. Spooked, they trooped out to the pen, staring at that white hog. It hauled itself up, locking eyes with Ellie Mae's swollen belly, and swear to God, it looked downright giddy, like it was tickled pink about the baby. That hog's face, paired with the dream, set their nerves jangling. Back in the kitchen, they hashed it out. Ma Tucker spoke first, voice low. "That critter's downright peculiar, staring at Ellie's belly like that. I've heard tell of animals with a 6th sense, knowing things we don't. That dream, those tears, it's got me all tore up." Pa Tucker, ever the practical one, cut in. "No use spinning yarns till we know more. Ellie's due any day, let's keep our heads on that. As for the hog, it asked for 5 days. We'll hold off butchering till then, see what shakes out. Then we'll decide." The family agreed, though doubts gnawed at them. But by the 5th night, those worries melted away. Ellie Mae gave birth to a chubby pink-cheeked boy. The house erupted in cheers. The second that baby hit the ground, a golden light flickered over him, there and gone, quick as a firefly. If some preacher'd been there, he'd have hollered it was a blessing from on high, a kid born lucky. The Tuckers were so busy with the newborn, they didn't hit the hay till midnight. That night, Ma and Pa Tucker dreamed again. The white hog knelt in the mud, bowing low. "Thank you, kind folks, for giving me them 5 days," it said. "I got to see the little one come into the world. That boy of yours, he's my son from a past life. Don't be scared now. He's got a good star over him, gonna make the Tucker name shine someday." Ma Tucker sat up in the dream, blurting, "Hold on, what's this about you and our grandson? How'd you end up in a hog's body?" The hog let out a dry chuckle, snout quivering. "No point hiding it now. Name's Clara Boone, only daughter of a big-shot lawyer from St. Louis, back in the day. My pa ran a firm famous coast to coast, sharp as a tack, reading folks like open books. Every generation, they'd pick one kid to carry the trade. Back when the country was young, my great-great-grandpa predicted a senator's rise, nailed it so good, the family got rich and connected. Trouble was, knowing too much brought enemies. Folks'd pay a fortune to peek at their fates, but spilling secrets cuts your life short. So the Boones went quiet, laid low, and we had peace for a spell." Clara Boone's voice carried on in the dream, low and steady, like she was spilling a secret she'd held too long. "My folks, pa and ma, doted on me something fierce. Only kid they had, so they kept me sheltered, away from the rough edges of the world. Growing up, I thought everyone was as kind as they were. Big mistake, that innocence. Planted the seeds for trouble down the line. When I hit 18," she went on, "I met a fella named Henry Caldwell, eldest son of a railroad baron out of Chicago. He came calling with flowers and smooth talk, and I fell hard, even when pa and ma begged me to steer clear. Against their wishes, I married him. Early days were sweet, Henry treated me like a queen, and 2 months in, I was expecting. But that's when the mask slipped." Clara's tone darkened. The Caldwells showed their true colors. Back then, there was a big political shake-up, folks fighting over a senator's seat that'd sway the whole state. Henry's pa, Old Man Caldwell, had a daughter from his first wife gunning for it, but she didn't stand a chance against the competition. They needed an edge, and they knew pa's knack for reading people could turn the tide. They leaned on him hard, threatened me and the baby if he didn't play ball. Pa caved, worked his magic, and sure enough, that gal won the seat. Pa got word to me through a dream after that, she said, warning me to watch my back. He was sick by then, worn to a thread from meddling in fate. He passed soon after, and ma followed, broken-hearted. Messing with destiny like that, it's a heavy price. Before he went, pa figured out what was coming. He'd read my future, tied it to the Caldwells. If I died, they'd crash and burn too, karmic payback. When I learned the truth, I hated them, wanted to spit in their faces. But I had a baby on the way, so I stayed put. Old Man Caldwell wasn't dumb, Clara sighed. He saw the fire in my eyes, knew I'd inherited pa's gift for seeing through folks. If I turned on him, they'd be sunk. So they decided to cut me out. The day I went into labor, they slipped poison in my tea. Me and my boy didn't make it through the night, gone quiet in that birthing room. Ma Tucker gasped in the dream. Hold up, folks say when you die, you head to the pearly gates or down below, waiting to come back. How'd you and your kid sidestep that? Clara chuckled, bitter and soft. That's the Boone family trick. Way back, my great-great-grandpa helped a governor dodge a scandal, saved half the state from ruin. That earned us a blessing, passed down in a little silver locket, a family heirloom. He'd foreseen a dark day for us Boones, said the 10th generation face a reckoning. When it hit, that locket's power could pull us through.
As he lay doing, his mess hit it open with my last breath.
A golden light poured out, same glow you saw on your grandson. That's what brought us here. Pa Tucker nodded, piecing it together.
So your boy's soul landed in Ellie Mai's baby, who?
Yep, Clara said. And I nearly faded away, used up most of that blessing to save him. But I couldn't leave him behind. In a panic, I latched onto that white piglet's body, closest thing I could grab. Wanted to see my boy born, even if it was through a hog's eyes. Once I did, I'd be ready to go. Ma Tucker's voice softened.
A moterslav, who? Turns a frailgal into iron vorherjangen. I get it, Clara.
Don't you worry, we'll treat that boy right. When he's old enough, we'll tell him about you, how you gave everything so he could live. Clara's hog eyes welled up, tears plopping into the dream mud. Thank you kindly. Y'all won't butcher me now, will ya? Nope, Pa Tucker said firm.
You're free to roam the place, Stick close to the little fella if you like.
Clara's snout quivered with relief. The Boons had money stashed away, old silver from Pa's dealings. I'll tip you off to where it's buried. Dig it up quiet-like and pass it out to folks in need round the hollow. It'll bring some good to the Tucker name. But this talk, it's just for you two.
Don't tell Jim and Ellie my. I'm selfish enough to want my boy to laugh empure, no tongueless over who he was.
Pa Tucker nodded slow.
Fair enough. Will keep it hush. Loose lips cold steer trouble anyhow.
The hog faded from the dream, and come morning, Ma and Pa Tucker woke with a tale buzzing in their heads. Our grandson's got some roots, Ma whispered, half-awed. Heard tell of stars and spirits coming down as kids, ones who grow up to lead or fight. Our boy ain't that, but with the Boone's knack, he's bound for something big. They named the kid Ben Tucker, short for Benjamin, a solid frontier name. Chubby and bright-eyed, he was a charmer from the jump.
Little Ben Tucker grey up quick under Shadow Peak's big sky.
Jim and Ellie May couldn't figure it out. Their smart, handsome boy took a shine to that white hog like it was his best pal. The hog, Clara Boone in disguise, got a good scrubbing and roamed free around the homestead. When the grown-ups were swamped, she'd nudge Ben's cradle or keep him from toddling into the creek. By the time he could walk, he'd climb on her back, giggling as she trotted him around the yard. Jim and Ellie May just laughed it off. Let the boy play with his fat hog, Jim'd say, shaking his head. Long as he's happy, that's what counts. At 5, Ben started at the one-room schoolhouse down in the hollow. The teacher, Miss Clara, funny coincidence that, spotted his knack for learning right off. He soaked up lessons like a sponge, outpacing kids twice his age. Every teacher dreams of a star pupil, someone to carry their torch higher, and Miss Clara poured her heart into Ben. He didn't let her down. By 20, Ben Tucker sat for the state exams, aced them too, and earned a spot as a clerk in Helena, Montana's capital. Word was, the governor himself took a liking to Ben's smarts and way with words. They pegged him for bigger things, maybe even a judge someday, but Ben had other plans. I want to go home, he told them. Family's waiting. The governor, after some hemming and hawing, let him go, couldn't say no to a kid that earnest. When Ben rode back into the hollow, fresh off his clerking gig, the whole town turned out. Folks crowded the Tucker porch, hollering congratulations and slapping him on the back. That fat hog hung back, peeking from behind the barn door, watching Ben's broad shoulders with watery eyes. At 20 years old, she was ancient for a pig, oughta have been bacon long ago. Maybe Clara's spirit kept her kicking, unwilling to leave her boy just yet. After the hoopla died down, Ma and Pa Tucker sat Ben aside and spilled the beans about the hog. Son, Pa said, that critter ain't just livestock.
She's Clara Bohne, your mama from as life.
Gave up everything to see you born, and she's been with us ever since. Ben took it in stride, eyes wide but steady. From then on, he and Clara, the hog that is, spent late nights poring over old Boone family tricks. She taught him how to read folks, spot the liars, suss out the desperate, skills her pa had honed back in St. Louis. It was their little secret, keeping the Boone legacy alive, just like her ancestors wanted. Ma and Pa kept Jim and Ellie May in the dark though. Your folks are good, honest people, Pa told Ben.
Can't keep a secret to save tire leaves. Telling just like down.
Sometimes not knowing's a blessing. Ben nodded, trusting the old man's call. Let's keep it that way, he said.
A white live on hurt
Time don't wait for nobody, it slips away, and what's coming's full of twists.
Cherishing was here now. That's the trick.
Ben lived by that, tending to his folks, his hog, and the hollow he called home. And that's the tale of the fat hog's dream, folks. If you liked it, drop a note below, don't forget to subscribe and share. Thanks for sticking around, see you in the next one.